maybe we should go ahead and start. John, did you want to?
Yeah, sure. So I think probably everyone on here may know some of the context behind this, but we're changing how we do the demo install of Istio. So we don't want to offer, unbounded customization on all these add-ons that we don't control. We want to just provide a plain YAML, very simple, no customization offered to get started and make it very clear it's for demos, and then improve the experience for integrating with, production grade deployments with Prometheus, Zipkin, Jaeger. So the open question here is, what do we do with tracing? Right now we have two deployments offered, Zipkin and Jaeger. It seems like it doesn't really make sense for a demo to have two options that do the same thing, or at least effectively the same thing. But it's also hard to pick a favorite. There's issues involved with that. So basically what this is we would need to figure out what we're going to do around that. There's a few options. The obvious ones are pick either just Zipkin or just Jaeger. But we could also do things like provide both, or provide like one as the default and then one in like some extras slash Zipkin or extras slash Jaeger folder that they could optionally use. Or something else I haven't thought of. So I don't particularly have an opinion on either of these. I don't really care too much. I don't know enough about tracing to make a informed decision. So that's why I'm here mostly.
So based on my experience, I think most user when they report issues is related to Jaeger. So that's why I think Jaeger might be more widely adopted than Zipkin from user standpoint. So that's why I vote for Jaeger.
From talking to some other people, it seems to me that the main selling point to keep Zipkin around is that it won't make the Zipkin community mad at us. It seems like most users are using Jaeger, and like I heard Kiali has better integrations with Jaeger, that sort of thing. So
yeah, I don't think anyone from Tetrade is on, but they had offered to help with the overhead of maintaining Zipkin were we to accept a second option there. So that's something else I want to throw into the mix in terms of consideration.
Yeah, I don't know if it's that much maintenance.
Status quo, right? Isn't second option status quo or nearly status quo?
Wait, no, you mean option 2 on here, or?
Sorry, option 3. Option 3 is status quo, right? Provide both Zipkin and Jaeger.
Option 3 would be actually deploying both of them into the cluster at once. We don't do that today, right? We do one or the other.
Once, okay, yeah.
Yeah, so that would be option 4 is the status quo, basically. Okay. I mean, it's slightly different, but you choose one or the other, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't actually think the overhead of maintaining a Zipkin deployment is an issue. It's more about the user choice, right? Because this is meant for demos only, and if the first thing we present is, do you want to use Zipkin or Jaeger, it adds some extra overhead in terms of, Istio is complicated enough, right?
Right. So I think that that we are going to have to choose one thing as the favorite, right? Because I agree. We don't want people to start with this question when they haven't even thought about tracing yet. However, if someone has thought about tracing and they want to test it out with like Zipkin or Jaeger or whatever the opposite of the default is, then it should just be in the doc. So I mean, I've like the way I'm thinking about this is that if the overhead of maintaining 2 is not that much, then we just make a soft choice and say, okay, by default Jaeger is enabled, but you can easily enable Zipkin as well.
And by easily enabled, do you suggest like just a documentation on how to do that, or just another folder like how I mentioned in options for like extra / Zipkin?
Right. Yeah, I think just another folder, and of course a doc to go with it, but that should be trivial. The doc should just say, okay, just do this kubectl apply, or
Yep.
something
Yeah.
like that.
So the point that was being raised on the comment thread there on the side was that Zipkin and Jaeger aren't the entire universe of tracing backends. And there's a ton of places that support the Zipkin API. And so I do want to like us to think about if we start saying, oh, well, we'll put other options in another folder. Are we only going to limit that to one, or are we going to say that any of the other options that want to be part of the possible demo options go there? Like we need some idea of how we want the policy to be shaped.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a great question. But so, yeah, if there is another open source option, which is kind of not vendor specific, really, then we do need to think about it, and part of it has to be in response to user and kind of community demand, right? Just because an option exists doesn't mean we need to add it. Like these two are the prominent ones. I mean, Zipkin, clearly that's the API that everyone uses, and then Jaeger, one of the later well adopted implementations of it. Is there an example of something else that fits into that bucket that we need to think about?
Isn't there that one like Skywalker or something? Skywalking?
Apache Skywalking. Yeah, I don't think it's kind of nearly at the same level as Zipkin or Jaeger, but Tetrate may disagree.
Yeah, well, there's also we don't necessarily need to put everything in the demo install, right? We could have a doc about integrating with Skywalking without having it as part of the demo. Right? That's I don't think we'd be against more documentation of how to integrate with things.
Yeah, so I mean, I think we then have to be pretty clear about why Zipkin qualified or why Jaeger qualified as an extras, and what the extras folder means, right? Like I would almost, if we're going to go docs for other things, I think we should just pick one and then add docs for how to do the other as well.
Yeah, I suspect if we didn't have Zipkin deployment today, that's probably what would be just the obvious choice, right? Like the main thing going for this extra folders with Zipkin to me is just that it's the status quo of what we've already done today.
So the other aspect of this, which is called out here, is that our tests currently use Zipkin. So should we default a different way? That would mean switching the tests, I think. I think we want to have our happy path tested, right?
Yeah, I think that's...
Yeah. I think part of this would be switching that test to use Jaeger if we choose Jaeger as the default, which I assume won't be super hard.
Are there other opinions? I know, Gary, I think I saw you were there. Do you have any opinions?
Sorry, just trying to find the mute button. No, I mean, it's a common sort of discussion. So I was trying to stay out of it because obviously I'm biased.
Well, it's okay. We're interested in gathering input from all sources. So,
yeah, I mean, I can understand that. We want to try and keep it simple for users when they're doing an installation. So, sort of providing one option is good. But yeah, I mean, I suppose the problem is its preference. When you provide a demo version, users will then probably go on and if they've got no strong opinion on the tracing system, they're more likely to then just go with that same system when they deploy into production. So, I mean, from my point of view, I think there is more production sort of deployments in meshes of Jaeger. But then, I may be wrong about that. I've got no firm stats to back that up. But I mean, just from the comments listed here about the other mesh vendors as well, seems to imply that Jaeger is the preferred option in that setting.
Niraj or anyone else, is there any other things we should consider, or?
Sorry.
Oops.
There are no Hash team. Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Looks like Neeraj, Aspen Mesh only supports Jaeger, right? So,
Yes, we currently support Jaeger. Sorry, I'm in multiple meetings at the same time. So we we have our own supported version of Jaeger right now. So this kind of does not impact us. So whatever is convenient for the community, we should do.
Well, so it sounds like the preference is to use Jaeger and switch the tests. Is that? And then so the question is whether we use option 2 or option 4.
Yeah, I agree. Those are the options.
I mean, option 2 is what we use currently. And I think most of the people actually do end up using the Zipkin API for Jaeger. Just because the clients support Zipkin. So
Okay.
So I'm sort of unbiased a little bit, even though Kiali integrates with Jaeger. I mean, maybe try converting a test and see how easy it is. And so if only Jaeger is there, and but if you can just use the same API that you're already using for your test, if that's easy, then maybe it's not too big a deal. I mean, the fact now from the bias side, I mean, since Kiali is pretty much goes side by side with Istio, it would make sense, I think, to have Jaeger. So that's my only input.
okay, so then I think there are enough positive votes to make Jaeger the preferred choice. So we are back to the question of do we just provide doc for Zipkin, or do we provide any artifact for Zipkin? I mean, I think that it would be nicer to the Zipkin community to provide some artifacts in the add-ons folder. So that's what I would vote for.
And what's your feeling about if Skywalking or whatever wants to be in that add-ons folder?
We will. I think. That's a good question. Does Skywalking have similar adoption as these two? Like, I mean, these are the questions that I would ask. So
I don't know enough about its community.
yeah, so I think if we hear from Istio community that this is something that people are using, then I think then we'll certainly have a discussion. But as of now, I would say that everything else can just stay in docs, and we are simply trying. We simply want to be nice to the Zipkin community, and the fact that we are using Zipkin API, we are maintaining some artifacts. But yeah, I mean, I would like to hear other opinions. So Doug, do you think 2 is better because it's more uniform?
Yeah, I mean, the simplicity of 2 appeals to me, but I'm very sensitive to the things you just mentioned. So I'm actually okay with 4 as long as we're clear about the bar to make it into the extras folder. And I think, you know, with Tetrate saying they use Zipkin and Skywalking and they like it, that they would be, we could lean on them for getting that done and tested. And so I think I'd be fine with option 4, given that. you have someone in the community that would be advocating for those options.
Okay, Neeraj.
Yes.
Four is fine with you too, which is provide Jaeger is the default and provide Zipkin artifacts in the add-ons folder so that someone can just do kubectl apply and
Yeah,
they don't
that
do
makes
anything.
sense.
Okay. All right.
All right, sounds good. We'll implement that, and then if you guys can take a look at the actual PR that's implementing this, once they do this, that'd be great. I did have one quick question about that. Now would be kind of a good time to change anything that we want to change about the add-ons. Like Jaeger is called Istio Tracing, I think. Do we want to rename that to Jaeger to be more clear that it's not like owned by Istio?
Yeah, is the Jaeger deployment itself named Istio Tracing? I thought the tracing was the service that was sort of implementation independent, but
So
I've lost track of that.
I believe that there's a deployment called Istio Tracing, a service called Tracing, and then a service called Zipkin.
Okay, then I would be in favor of changing the deployment to reflect the implementation name.
Okay, sounds good. And then, yeah, we'll keep the service to Tracing. I think makes sense because that's used and documented.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Thanks, John. The next item on the agenda that I put up was canonical service info in Trace, and I know we did the work to support trace span annotation, custom tags from headers and environment variables, but I think we left off metadata. I didn't know if that was intentional or not, and so I was wondering if we wanted to add that, or if there was another way to label spans with canonical service information. So I was hoping for a brief discussion of that.
Actually, can you open up the doc, Doug?
The Envoy docs?
Oh, actually, or the pull request, whichever one is the more.
Yeah, I should open that up. Hold on. This is loads. So if we can look at where is it? Yeah, so here we have custom tags are literals, environment variable, or request header, but there's also also the choice to also put node metadata in there, and I just didn't know if that was something that we thought we should do, or if we should, or if there's another way to get canonical service into tracing. Or if people have objections to even the goal of getting that information in the tags, that would be another thing worth discussing.
Yeah, so I mean, someone else also want to comment on this. Is I mean, Gary or anyone else, but I mean, I think it makes sense to have node metadata there, and you can disregard it, but aligning everything behind canonical service is a goal, and I think this is consistent with that goal.
Okay. I see Jacob's not here, so I'll try and follow up with him offline, but I would like to add that and try and get it into 1.6 if people are okay with that. So I think that's going to be useful, and I don't want to wait a whole nother release for that.
Okay. 1.6 is awfully close, but okay. If we can get the release managers. Oh, it's Jacob. Okay, good.
Right. So it's sort of convenient.
Okay.
I recognize that it's super close, but I worry that if it's not there, well, it feels incomplete to me about that. So
Okay.
all right. Okay. The customizable telemetry question, I think that was resolved in the time since I added this to the agenda. This is the question of what we wanted to do regarding the fact that the TCP and HTTP filters interacted because they shared the same VM ID, and if we wanted to make this simpler or make it better, but I think that has been resolved since I asked that. So I'm going to go ahead and unless someone else, I mean, I know Mandar, you were talking about.
Yeah. So I mean, it's what I was talking about is related, but it is very difficult to debug, like mapping sorts of issues, and which is and I even the code that I know really well, there aren't enough trace points and things like that. So I think in 1.7 we need to do work on debuggability and like adding right sorts of error messages and things like that. There are many places, especially in this evaluation of cell, where we don't crash, which is great, but we silently just eat errors, and it is extremely difficult to debug that. So I want to add that to 1.7 and make sure that we make progress on it.
Is this only from the cell evaluation library or generate a debugging filter?
Well, so like I think generally also there is the way we are tracing. The way we are producing trace logs and debug logs is not very consistent, right? Like sometimes these logs were added as part of development, so they're extremely noisy. But then once initial development was done and everything was working, except they were excessively removed. And now if you run into a problem and you turn on debugging, you don't get like high quality logs to actually do much of anything. And I mean, I have had to like just attach a debugger and kind of see what is going on, which is that's not where we want to be. So we have extensions debugging as kind of a bigger theme, and part of it is tracing and logging. But to your specific question, yes, cell evaluation itself is also challenging because cell has its own universe of errors, and then they're translated somewhat in a lossy way to the WASM result universe of errors. And it is actually then it gets very confusing because the WASM result error says X, but a whole bunch of unrelated errors get mapped into one WASM result, and now you have no idea like why isn't the thing that you want to work not working.
Yeah, okay, I see. So basically first priority is to improve the cell debugging.
So first priority is to improve cell debugging, which is needed both for configurable metrics, like even anything configurable, right? So
yeah, okay.
Okay. The next topic I took from the Slack channel. I think Daniel Grimm had raised this originally in the Slack, and we've talked about this several times sort of in the past, but I just wanted to sort of raise it again. Is what is our plan for gRPC adapters? Are we going to work on a WASM extension for transmitting it over? Or are we going to work on a shim like Peter suggested for the adapter code that could work with the Envoy APIs that we anticipate the transition supporting? What do we think here? What's our plan?
I mean, I would prefer not doing anything and just asking people to solve the same problem in a more direct way. Because it's not like Mixer, like it's not like all that is going away today, right? There is plenty of time, and the time it takes to rejigger the out of process adapter with a new facade will actually be equivalent to kind of this sort of engineering effort, which is going to be like non-trivial code, but just adds, I think it just adds like tech debt unnecessarily.
So do we think that the people who have already written these adapters and are troubleshooting them and maintaining them today, do we know if any of them are already starting this transition? And if they feel they have the tooling to do that? My concern is, it wasn't that long ago that we said, hey, everyone stop writing mixer adapters, write these gRPC adapters. And now we're just sort of leaving that out to, people out to dry a little bit on that transition.
Yeah. So okay. I mean, I agree, or I can see that, and so we should address that, but not by writing something more.
So I think it's fine to provide a shim, right? It's not a large project, and it's a good intern project.
So a shim that does what to what?
External RC to whatever the template that for policy check, and access log for whatever the telemetry template.
Okay, so using external RC with. Okay, so then this can be written in Go then, not C++.
Yes, not C++. WASM is like a no-go. It's just
okay.
Yeah.
Right. Because we had, I think Nupur has probably is probably like 80% of the way with an actual in proxy implementation of the whole thing, and then we stopped saying it's.
Yeah, I guess to make it work, it will require more time. Like it's a very heavy filter, and
correct.
Yeah.
Okay, so now making it an intern project, the thing is that people that actually care about it will be using this in production, right? And we know a few, right? I don't know if we can say which they are here, but we definitely know a few.
Mm.
And the question is, will they want to switch to this some temporary model, or would they rather invest in the actual real strategic direction?
So the problem is we cannot guarantee that WASM is in production ready state by 1.7, but we are planning to deprecate Mixer in 1.7. So that means they will have a period that they don't really have a way to do extension, right? Other than like using external RC and access log, like use native Envoy extension mechanism. So that's why I think it makes sense to provide this shim as a for like short period, and also ask people to start to think about transition to WASM.
Okay, I think that makes sense. Though the question is, we want we want WASM support in 1.7, right? Not necessarily. So perhaps even null sandbox will do, or no, it has to be true WASM support.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's a good point, and especially if we can attach it to x.zilla, like you said, then we don't incur like tech debt. It's kind of a separate standalone piece of code, and we can remove it once we're done.
Yep.
Okay, so we want to add that to the intern projects, Peter?
Yes, sure. I can be a mentor of that.
Okay, great.
Okay. Awesome. So then I guess we did want to spend a few more minutes, because I know some people weren't here to participate last time, on generating ideas for 1.7. We have about, I don't know, 8 days before we need to present this to the TOC. So if there are ideas, things that have come up that we think should be on this map that aren't there, now would be the time. So I'll open the floor to 1.7, and it sounds like we have another one, which is debugging cell, right? It came up.
Yep.
There's this shim for gRPC auth adapters. Are there other things? John was raising the point that for mixer deprecation, we should start to get more specific about what happens right after 1.7 comes out. Are we going to move mixer? Are we not? So that's the only one that I've seen commented.
Yep.
Peter, you said you had some things.
Yeah. So one thing I want to add is like better Envoy native stats. I mean, just expose more Envoy native stats that involves measurement and make sure that we have good guide on how to operate Prometheus with that.
The request classification work has to be carried forward. Like there is that that issue had maybe like 15 steps, and I think 2 or 3 are done. So there is a lot of stuff around that still needs to be done.
Okay. Do we think that this is gonna be addressed in 1.7, the metrics expiry, or are we?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
There's still too many, I think. Like we need to like the API, I think is top priority.
Yeah, API is the top priority.
So what about this? I know Niraj, who had to leave, this was something he really was adamant about. Are there other gaps? I know we have the sort of out of mesh contacts. Are there other things related to loss behavior? I mean, we talked about the gRPC adapters, but is there something else we're forgetting?
No, I think that's well. So there is like there is some there's some gaps in stack driver v2 telemetry, which we should fill, right? TCP access logs. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I know this was something that came up in sort of the battlegrounds and customer experience, right? Was how can we get better at provide even better acknowledgement of Istio's role in issues. Okay, I mean, this is sort of a big chunk of work, I think. I just want to make sure that we're not, as I try and coalesce this into a better roadmap, just hoping that we're not missing anything big. Trying to remember what 1.6 ended up.
So better dashboards and all that. That we also have an intern project
Right.
for that, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and there's stuff like the like the metric CLI and
Yeah.
VM stuff as well that I think can be helped. Although, when is 1.7? What's the target date for 1.7? Is it August or is it before August? July?
It must be August, right? Like May 12th or 15th is 1.6, so 3 months later.
So hopefully this lines up
Yeah.
well with the work that can be done over the summer.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, unless there's other contributions here, I think there's not much more to say at the moment. I will try and get this into shape with priorities, and I will send a notification on the Slack channel and maybe discuss about the priorities, just so we can have a group sort of offline review before presenting to the TOC next Friday.
Yep, that makes sense.
And then I think the next item on the agenda was doing testing of 1.6. I don't know if we need to stay online for that. So is there anything else that anyone else wants to talk about today?
Nope.
Okay. Well then, so this, I don't think we all need to stay online to do testing, but I think we should all take some time today and tomorrow and Friday to look at the P0s for 1.6 and look at the new docs that we've added and do testing, particularly for features that maybe you didn't implement, but were implemented. So I think having
and please hold off on testing the request classification as it is documented. I found there are like some errors in the doc, which I'm working through now.
Okay. Yeah, so try out the new tracing APIs, things like that. I think we should try and do before Monday, when I think is the next community testing day. And that's it. That's, I think, all there is. So if there's anything else, maybe we can adjourn.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
Everyone.